It is the fourth and final day of HGC 2017 group action here at the beautiful Blizzard Arena in Burbank, California. Good morning and good day to you. I am Kevin Michael Johnson, your host. We've got an exciting set of matches for you today. Yesterday, though, quick recap, we saw two teams advance. Dignitas and Roll20 join the likes of MPP Black, Tempo Storm, Fnatic, and Team Freedom on the Blizzcon stage. Next weekend, we have two more spots up for grabs for that round of 8, and it's all going down today with Group D. Those matches, first up, SPT, China's #1 seed up against Soul Torturers from Taiwan. This one's looking to be a bit of a grudge match, so you'll want to catch it for sure. Then follow that with Team Expert from EU up against the #1 seed from Korea and reigning champs from BlizzCon 2016, Ballistics. Now, let's head on over to our analyst desk, to the man who puts the H in HGC and the Z in ANZ, James Colares-Carroll.
Thank you very much, Cloaken. Always a pleasure to have you here along for the ride for HGC 2017 Finals. And what we've got coming up today, I'm hoping is not going to disappoint, because the last 3 days, we've seen a variety in strategies, we've seen upsets, we've seen a whole lot of stuff. To my left-hand side, we have Grubby, we have Dread, and we have Trixler. Guys, so far, it's been a very varied and exciting tournament.
Yeah, we thought we're going to have a lot of double support play. We heard this on the Ether through the grapevine.
Yeah.
But actually, we've been very happily surprised seeing a lot of different heroes, a lot of different styles, a lot of single support play as well. And every day there's a bunch of new heroes and even some really cool new styles, thanks courtesy to North American teams as well.
I think that even kind of trickles down to the map selections that we've seen from all these teams. It does feel like we have not formed, a consensus of what is going to be the competitive meta, and we may maybe not see that up until, quarter semifinals. So it's been amazing to see that level of diversity, but the map pool is the biggest thing for me. It almost always feels like in an international event, there's one map that stands out, and so far, we haven't been able to find it.
Games that are set up here. The individual games have been wonderful. Look at yesterday, Roll20 against Tempest. I don't think anyone expected a 2-0, especially in the fashion that we saw it happen in. So every game, man, you look at them, you can't help but enjoy them. They're amazing.
That's right. Of course, not only is the BlizzCon trophy and the HGC Finals trophy up for grabs, but also the matter of $1 million, which will be distributed between all of these teams. The breakdown is as follows, with the first place grabbing themselves a cool $500,000. $100,000 each. Basically, Grubby, that's life-changing money.
Yeah, I mean, especially depending where you come from. For example, SPT coming from China, that's a lot of yearly wages in one single tournament. Now, of course, they have been leading up to a tournament like this for many years. They've been playing for 3 years, most of them. So it's the culmination of a lot of hard work, a lot of effort, and not like how some people sometimes say, like, oh, I'd like to go and play one gaming tournament and get $100,000. No, this is the combination of a lot of hard work. We all know that, right? But it is certainly a huge sum of money.
Yeah, definitely. One team, of course, that, as Grubby mentions, going forwards into today. There's 3 others, though, as we can check in with the bracket to see how things are going to break down. So it's a double elimination bracket, Trixler, and overall, that's a good lineup of teams. A very solid group today.
Yeah, if Group C didn't have so many powerhouses, I think many would look at Group D as the next group of death. You have so many wonderful teams here. You have Ballistics, who is a reigning champion from BlizzCon 2016, so you can't count them out. Then you have Team Expert, who I think is one of the best in Europe. The top 3 has always been wonderful. And then you have SPT, the best in China, playing in this matchup. And then one of the best minor regions, Soul Torturers.
It's very hard to be able to gauge, who's going to come out on top here in this group. But the team I have my eye on for the most part is going to be SPT. China has always been, a pleasant surprise so far from the other teams that we've seen being able to perform here. But the dominance that they were able to show within China as of late suddenly makes me go, I'm very optimistic towards their success, even within this competitive group.
23-5 was their end record for the year.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah,
they did have a kind of self-awareness about that. In the absence of E-Star, they've kind of filled the vacuum here of the most powerful team in China.
Yeah.
But that's still a competitive region, and that's still a very impressive result.
You're wearing your Team Expert tie, I see, today. So obviously they came second at the Western Clash, and the only thing that really kind of truly tripped them up was Fnatic. So what are their prospects going into this
So the
group?
cool thing about Expert is I feel like they are very grounded. They're very realistic.
Yeah.
They did lose 0-6 to Fnatic at the Western Clash, but they felt that they were a little bit behind in many different areas, culminating in that kind of result. But when you look at their gameplay, they were very far ahead against Fnatic sometimes. And it really was just one shot call sometimes, one positioning that made them lose. And if they've done any improvements since then, and one can imagine that they have, they're going to be an absolutely formidable team and probably much better than third team from Europe might suggest.
Right, we can continue this on in a moment, but for now, let's get you up to date with how the games are going to break down as today progresses, as we will have 5 series in total. Once again, I felt like a lot of the days were going to be fast 2-0s, 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 but no, we've had a lot of 2-1s so far. No doubt we'll get some more today. Later on, we'll have Ballistics going up against Team Expert. That is a very highly anticipated fixture, and then our first match will be SPT going up against Soul Torture. So Dread, Trick, also, what do you think about Team Expert? You can even highlight some of the other teams if you really want.
The biggest thing I want to highlight about Expert specifically is that I do think that their play style will be more successful against non-European teams than it will against within Europe itself. I feel like the creativity and unique play style that they can present if their backs are against the wall is something that everybody has to be very, very afraid of. And it feels like the amount of time that the European players have had to be able to learn, you know, the mastermind of ADRD at their Angel of Bad Benny, like the strategies that they have, they've learned to be able to deal with that. But I feel like these other regions are really going to struggle into it.
I mean, you talk about creative and unique, and yes, Expert can be that, but they're also a team that plays every single type of composition well. They have a great leader in-game, Bad Benny. This guy on a tank is deliberate and effective, and the thing is, he's backed up by one of the best assassins in the HGC. Quietly, one of the best assassins in the game. Nick is a complete powerhouse that will dominate anyone that is in front of him. I look forward to this match, Ballistics and Expert, as my match of the day.
Yeah, it definitely looks to be that. It looks a very, very cool fixture coming up in a few moments' time. For now, though, of course, we can talk about that in a few moments' time as we do introduce you today to Group D to find out who moves on to Blizzcon.
So to prepare for HG finals, like us and other teams from Europe went to bootcamp in Korea, where we could practice versus Korean region and also versus us. So I think that it helped us a lot coming up here. Okay, so in Korea we practiced a lot versus MVP Black and Tempest, and we played also versus Ballistics, but a little bit less since they're in our group, so both of us didn't want to play too much versus each other.
So in our group, we play Ballistics first, and our goal is to get the first seed, which means we need to win every matchup. Ballistics is obviously the hardest one, given that they're the second Korean seed, and yeah, if we can beat them, we can beat the others, I'm pretty sure.
So in our group, the one team that I'm not so sure about it is SPT, since Chinese region had a lot of problems with visa, so we basically never could see their full strength. So I think this is like the strongest SPT team that we will see this year.
我们的优势在于就是我们节奏好，就是打国内战队的时候，我们都是就是稳住，然后慢慢打自己的节奏。像我们国内巨龙阵这张图，我们就从来就没输过，所以我们对这种打节奏的图就优势很大。但是因为我们这次有一个辅助，就是原本的辅助那个张志豪签证问题来不了嘛，就是补了一个 RPG 的那个萨队，然后我们还得慢慢磨合，就是重新找一下节奏。
对于还有一个 ST， 因为我们经常跟他们分在一组各种比赛，但是我们因为总有一个队员签证的问题，然后只能无奈带上老板 Simba， 然后每次都输给他们。然后我只想对他们说，这次我们一定会复仇的。然后还有一句话就送给他们，就是你们这次又跟我们分到一起，你们的运气这次应该已经用完了。
我们队伍在这个礼拜主要是先熟悉这个 meta， 然后练一些适合这个 meta 的阵容，然后跟我们的默契，因为我们队伍刚组成，所以默契不是很好，我觉得我们在这里需要加强。我觉得我们队伍的 特色跟优势就是可能多了2个新加坡人，因为他们的加入就是让我们战术变得很多样化，因为他们在他们那里学的，还有我们这里学的，就是我们两边的意见可以互相讨论，看怎么样让队伍更好。然后还有就是这次的队员，就是其实在相处下来蛮好的，就是我们有什么失误都会提出来，然后我觉得这点可以让我们进步。
我觉得我们这次可以晋级总决赛，也就是大家相处得很好，就像朋友一样，不太会有吵架、争吵之类的问题，所以我觉得我们这次可以打得不错。
저희는 이제 팀워크적으로 점점 더 좋아지려고 하고 있고 이제 개인이 또 따로 연습도 많이 하고 준비를 열심히 하는 것 같습니다. 저희 팀이 항상 그 여러 가지 시도를 하기 때문에 그 상황이나 그날의 느낌에 따라서 저희가 연습했던 것 중에 이제 좀 새로울 수 있는 전략을 보여드릴 수 있을 것 같아요.
이번 경기를 위해 유럽 팀들이랑 같이 연습을 좀 많이 해서 같이 연습하고 왔어요. 일단 B조에서는 소울 터처스 팀은 좀 쉽게 이길 수 있을 것 같고, 그리고 웬만하면은 저희 발리스틱스랑 그리고 익스퍼트는 웬만 올라갈 것 같고, 이변이 있다면 SPT가 이변을 일으키는 게 아니라면 무난하게 저희랑 익스퍼트가 올라갈 것 같아요.
And that is Group D. And I think the most important thing to highlight there is that Misaka going into this first series is out for blood Trixler. We heard it from them.
Yeah, there's a bit of a, I wouldn't say bad blood, but some aggression towards each other. The Eastern Clash, SPT came in, we're having a few subs in, we had Simba filling in, and ST was able to easily clean them up with a 2-0, and there were some words that were exchanged, and ever since then, they have been looking forward to this match. So the first game that we start out with is going to be pretty electric.
It's pretty awesome that we were able to get this kind of international grudge. It's very rare that we have teams kind of picking battles on the other side, other than the banter between NA EU. That is the playful side of it all. But when it's actual grudge sitting here to kick off Group D, it's really exciting.
Can we talk about what was said? I mean, it wasn't that bad.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Go ahead.
When they went for the winner's handshake, SPT versus Soul Torturers, Soul Torturers apparently said thanks. After they had won, so SPT has just about had it, and that's why they said your luck has run out. We're coming for you this time.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And now, of course, that is going to be our first fixture in just a few moments' time. Let's focus on SPT to see how they're going to be moving into this series. I think it's fair to say, at this point, they've sort of conquered the position in China. E-Star was there for a long time. Then I felt CE was going to take it, but SPT has stepped it up recently.
That they have, and man, my heart out to the guy Simba. Obviously, he filled in for the team when they needed somebody. He was there to help them out, but he was not cutting it, and he wasn't ready for the roster, and it really did hurt them in the last couple of tournaments. This is our first look at months at international play that we'll see this roster together. Now, they do have a sub in, obviously, with Sa, but it's a big pickup for them.
Yeah, it is a big pickup. Sa is very, his credentials are very much there, playing with RPG up into the past. But the biggest thing that I want to highlight is that San Xiao is a player that has grown drastically over the past year. But if you look way back at his play, he used to be way too aggressive, so just committing far too much into the backline and creating a problem. And they admitted, ZZH was there to be able to aid him and kind of warning him, hey, this might be too far, way too aggressive. So the fact that they have the support being lost here without ZZH, I feel like their hyper carry, one of their biggest playmakers, is really going to be hindered or at least tested at this level.
And that's going to be a big challenge. Even now in the team interview, they said that Chen Xiao can be a little reckless. But even though they play with a sub, they do have their humility where it should be. Like, they had a very deflated, or let's say, very grounded sense of self here. They said, like, we know it's going to be a challenge, but we're a good team and we're good at the macro play, and it's going to probably, hopefully, work out in some way.
Yeah, and of course, on the other side of the battlefield, we have Soul Torturers, who arguably, out of all of the minor regions, out of when they've come to the international stage, they've been the best.
Yeah, I mean, we started first looking at minor regions as a region to actually look at as a legitimate dark horse somewhere around BlizzCon last year.
Yeah.
Soul Torturers doing surprisingly well there. And even now, they said they have some special strategies and heroes up their sleeve. And they recognize playing on day 4, which it is today, the team that was going to be doing the best is the team that adapts the fastest. They, as well as all their team, all the other teams in this group have been looking at day 1, 2, and 3. How did the meta evolve? Like, how can we use what we've seen today on that match day of day 4?
And they did admit that they have seen practice and play here from SPT into the past, and so that depending on the smart level of play that they want, being able to adapt here, that is something that I think is going to be a must if they're going to overcome the individual skill that we see out of SPT. Even though they do have the sub, I'm pretty confident that SPT is going to look pretty fierce here in this tournament.
For me, Soul Torturers also mentioned that they do feel a little bit of pressure to live up to the old hype of old Taiwan teams. PBA, Please Buff Art, that's obviously had some great runs in the past. So they're here with a little bit of pressure on their shoulders, but it's good for them to start coming out against SPT. As you mentioned, this is a matchup that they know very well. It's all about adapting and being ready and set up for this meta that is specifically being played at this tournament.
Let's check in with the global cheer bar as the HGC universe continues to cheer for their favorite teams in chat. 26 million. I think we've raised it by about 1 million, at least, whilst we've been here alone. So a big congratulations to everyone out there as we progress towards the deadly Chaos Lizard, and also all the banners and sprays that you can get in-game as well, supporting your favorite teams from around the world. Now, one thing I do want to bring up, Grubby, is that you mentioned just briefly that Soul Torturers, with the new 2 members that they've got from Singapore, they feel like they can bust out more strategies, more play styles, and I think from what we've seen the past couple of days, that's never been more important.
Yeah, it has never been more relevant because there's so many ways to play Heroes of the Storm right now. It can be all about team fights, objective manipulation, or ignoring both of those and just manipulating the map with globals and with special styles. And I, for one, am very excited to see how Mir and Zeiss are going to be fitting into Soul Torturers, bringing in a little bit of a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, especially since Mira and Zeiss are no stranger to this kind of stage.
I mean, yeah, with the pass that they've had internationally, I didn't keep track of the amount of times. I want to say it's like 3 to 4 times we've had them perform at the international stage. They're no stranger to it, but I do want to bring to light with the adaptability that we're going to be looking for from them into this series. I want to focus a little bit on the macro play. We heard SPT talking about they want to concentrate on macro, that they think macro is their strength. And SPT spawned as a team within China right after E-Star and some of the kind of weakness in team fighting pulled away, and the Chinese region heavily focused onto their macro play. It feels like they have given about a year's worth of time to learn to not only focus onto macro, but then also synergizing that in with the teamwork or the team fighting. And I go for a non-league region here. Most of the time, they struggle into macro play. So I really feel like China, and specifically SPT's growth over the past year, is going to be extremely overwhelming.
Well, we're going to find out which battleground we're going to head to first for game number 1. So without further ado, it will be Towers of Doom, chosen by Soul Torturers. What are we making of it?
Well, very interesting that Dragonshire is not banned out here. SPT, they already said themselves they are undefeated on Dragonshire here. So that is going to be a powerful map. Another cool thing to point out is that SPT, in preparing for the BlizzCon, have pretty much played in the best of 2 format, as that is how HGC China is being played out. And that means you've only got 2 games maximum. It can end in a tie, and that means that one-trick strategies could be extra powerful. So going into Towers of Doom here, anything goes.
Yeah. Let's get into it. Game number 1 for day 4 here for the HGC 2017 finals as SPT goes up against Soul Torturers. Find out who's going to advance on to the winners match.
For me, I'm watching Soul Torturers here. I want to see if they're going to prioritize their tank in the early stages of their draft. ETC has been very important for Squirrel in the past, but also at the last Eastern Clash, they did a lot of pit compositions, Stitches, a Noob Rag, these type of heroes that allowed for them to find one hero and target them down with their range assassin and usually an Illidan mixed in. So I want to see how quickly Mur being brought to this team here, how things change here for Soul Torturers as they take on SPT. Murden, the first one to be picked up, and we have continued to see him throughout the tournament. He is quite the beast.
So Murden right now has a 15 win, 12 loss win record in the tournament. He is the most played hero of the tournament so far.
Yeah, and he's just been, surprisingly climbing through the stature of prioritization within the draft, because we talked about day number 1, we thought he would be a very hyped up hero, and then that oftentimes he made it post-secondary ban phase. It does feel like before we have even made it past the group stage here that teams are changing that thought process, but a staple at the top half of the draft, Brightwing and ETC continue here through Group D.
Brightwing not doing as well herself. 6 wins and 13 losses so far in the opening week of BlizzCon. At least 3 of those wins were from Fnatic. I don't know that we should leave them out of these stats, as they truly are a part of it, but because they're such a good team, well, there you go. So Brightwing's win rate has been not so good so far. There's 2 potential globals here if ETC elects to go with Stage Dive. Even just taking a hero that has 2 very valid heroics is such a good thing to take early, because you can choose to go into either one.
Yeah.
Kind of viability is nice.
More flexible. And it does provide that, concern towards the macro play that I was a little bit fearful of that SPT would be able to dominate on. But no surprise, SPT will continue down that focus with having a global on the Dahaka and the top wave clear with that Rhaegar pickup. Ultimately, neither team really committing to anything. I like the fact that both were very considerate of just making it a generic, relatively strong composition and try and see if they can make a power play here in the post-secondary ban phase.
Just reactive there, wanting to match the Brightwing with the Dahaka. Dahaka having one of the highest win rates currently in the tournament. I believe 63% between his picks. I think top 3 is where he's at right now. So Dahaka, not a bad pickup, especially on Towers of Doom. We've seen him used to full effectiveness and a great way to handle that Brightwing, especially if Brightwing leaves a fight too early and you do believe that your team is able to disengage. Dahaka pops that W, charges forward, grabs a couple of turrets, and even puts some damage on a fort.
Exactly. Plus, he's the much better global. Dahaka is always the second warrior. Brightwing is like a support, so she often needs to be with the team to give any healing at all. So it's not great for her to be very late to a fight. Think also of Rhaegar. He is, of any hero that's played 7 or more times in this tournament so far, he's the #1 win rate with 15 wins and 9 losses. So very solid to take early on, and still doesn't reveal much about SPT's direction later on in the draft.
I felt like we were going to have to see Soul Torturers commit to essentially banning out what their next 2 picks were going to be in the 3-4, but they still managed to keep it very, very vague with an objectively, you can make the argument that the Tassadar ban is going to be worth it. I just felt like, we would see that kind of moment where it's like, oh, ban the Cassia, we can expect this heavy melee auto attacker, but they still had an impactful ban without committing in any direction. So now SPT is equally kind of sitting there going, where are they going to go with this? Are we missing any major red flag?
Only red flag that might be up here is the Greymane, but they have decent control on Greymane here between the Murd and the Dahaka themselves. Rhaegar also makes it a bit difficult to make that full dive forward. But if they want a safe ban that they don't really need to grab on their team, Greymane wouldn't hurt too much. They're looking to look at that Sonya, though, who has been a powerhouse in the top lane.
Sonya has been, has an insane impact here throughout this tournament. I have been really, like the Murden argument that we were talking about before, I've always felt like Sonya was going to be that as well, but she seems to not be prioritized here at the same level that I thought she would. Murden is continuing upward. I'm just trying to look for the argument here as why she hasn't pulled ahead.
She sees a lot of play, 11 wins, 12 losses, about middling win rates. Still, teams are figuring out exactly where they can play her, right? It wouldn't be the best matchup for her so far, but they remove her anyway, as she's great at taking camps. Towers of Doom has a very heavy emphasis on sapper camp control at the bottom lane.
One thing we've got to be concerned about is the fact that Medivh has made it through this draft. SPT is no stranger to committing to a Medivh on a map like Towers of Doom. But as Soul Torturers go with the Lucio double support, Brightwing, well, specifically Lucio, I just want to highlight, I personally feel is the best secondary support in almost all cases, just because the high amount of mobility he provides to your team, and having somebody else to make up for, his immediate healing that he doesn't have. That mobility translates to increased damage and decreasing the damage opportunities for your opponent. So I always, just any kind of synergy with him or double support with him, I feel like I'm a huge advocate for.
It's been strong throughout the tournament. Lucio Rhaegar, Lucio Brightwing, not a bad mix at all. And now SPT will have to be looking for their damage here soon. Already they have decent engage into the mercenary camps in the bottom left, so something that can help out, of course, in that regard, and then do well in the bottom lane, while Dahaka can transition to the double soak on the top lane and the middle lane. Vala always stands out as an immediate go-to, but is it squishy against this Greymane here? Would they have to grab another support?
I would like to see the double support in Sunshine and Vala, because the guy can really turn things up when necessary. if they don't go into the Vala direction, they already have the opportunity, the Dahaka, to be able to stop some of the bleeding on the macro game, so you just need to make sure that the 4-man has kill potential. I wouldn't mind that secondary support being that Karazim to follow up, get some damage onto the Muradin. There's the Vala, and they commit to the Uther instead of the Karazim, but ultimately more defensive capabilities. You were concerned about the squishiness. Uther far better there than, well, I guess not better, but more forgiving than the Karazim.
Can straight up stop Premium in his tracks too.
Could even do a bit more of an aggressive battle style Uther that we often see coming out of the Chinese region. More stuns, maybe Holy Shock or Divine Storm. Or
Battle
just go
Uther.
with the Divine Shield and save Rhaegar from that dive, because Rhaegar's one of his main weaknesses is getting dove on pretty heavily, and so far Soul Torturers has that dive con. Looking at their final pick, Arthas benefits heavily from the 45% movement speed that Lucio can give temporarily.
Mixes well with ETC too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the, they're going to go with the Malthael instead, going with the solo warrior here, but it will be able to aid, you know, at least with the cross-supporting, having the opportunity to kind of give that grievous wounds.
Now with Malthael, I think Divine Storm makes even more sense, but it can be tough to... If Lucio is on point and Melody C... so Tetcher has told me, who cast the Chinese region, Melody C is a fantastic Lucio. If he's on point with his sound barriers, they can pretty much just negate any instant blow-up.
Yeah. Yeah, the Malthael will go in, try to force out the stun, try and read the Divine Storm coming out, Sound Barrier pops in, and then you just run them over. Very interesting draft here from Soul Torturers.
Tread, thoughts?
I feel like on that last pick, I would have liked to see something like the Arthas we were talking about. I feel like I needed to see a little bit more survivability within this composition. Okay. But then immediately when I was thinking some of the heroes that go into that survivability, it doesn't have enough damage output. And the Arthas was the only one kind of with that middle ground hybrid. Ultimately, I just feel like I don't mind the Malthael. He is still very an objectively strong hero, but I don't like him as much into double supports and in this type of case where we see it picked up.
Okay. I'm still thinking about the Malthael and how I see it kind of going into that, but I'm the host. I'm not going to kind of go down that path. Grubby, looking at what you see from SPT and Soul Torturers, who do you think kind of got the better end of the stick here?
I see a lot of utility in Soul Torturers between Brightwing and ETC, a lot of battlefield control, but SPT is very tanky indeed. So it's going to be, it's a cliche, but it's going to be about execution. I don't see a clear lead per se on either side.
Trick?
Yeah, I actually look over to Soul Torturers, and I think they're actually going to have a strong laning phase. They have the option of putting Brightwing in that top lane just to bully Dahaka even more, and Malthael, if you misplay that lane, can beat Dahaka out right away too. I think I lean towards Soul Torturers here. I think with a good Tormented Souls, the great play of Brightwing, they can edge out an early lead and run with it.
Do you think that Soul Torturers here feels the it's not even animosity from SPT or whatever, but obviously we heard both of their emotions coming in, and it felt like SPT kind of focused on that far more than Soul Torturers. Did you think that they're also kind of in the same boat with the rivalry that has kind of bustled here a bit?
Of course, the team that has lost is going to focus far more heavily on it than, you know, the team that left victims by the wayside. It's like, oh, whatever. But
yeah, I'll be looking at SPT's early game. If they're aggressive in their face, Murden is jumping over walls into blind mercenary camp steals, I think SPT is going to be bringing that blood and trying to break them down.
Don't forget that you can vote over on Twitter with the hashtag SPT or ST. Make sure to hashtag HGC as well as @Heroes Esports as well. Continuing forwards, we're ready to go over to our commentary team for the first series of the day. So without further ado, take it away.
Welcome in to the final day of the HGC Finals opening week as we kick things off with Soul Torturers versus Super Perfect Team. My name is Jay Howe alongside Caldor. Caldor, what do you make of the drafts and with our first day of the matchup?
I agree with Grubby here. I think it comes down to the execution, and I personally am super excited to see SPT because so far, for me personally, China was a bit of a letdown. We know they have their problems with visas, with players that have to sub in for teams, but I would love them to have a bit more of an impact, and I think SPT is probably the best chance that we're going to see some of that Chinese dominance and aggression, so I'm excited for this.
The history has been told between these two teams. They talked about it in their video. They're so used to playing each other at these LAN tournaments, so we're going to figure out how this goes as we head into game number 1 here to kick things off. SPT waiting on ST on the other side. Imagine we might have a few tongue twisters throughout the day, but definitely want to see how this China versus Taiwan matchup squares out.
It's definitely going to be a super interesting match here, starting off with Group D, our last group in the opening week, and of course SPT. They have also a bit of a regional reputation to live up to here, as CE fell short already on the first day, and then DTG could also not really deliver. Now we're starting our first map off. We are on Towers of Doom, and all the way to the left side, we have Misaka on Murden for SPT. We have Sa on Uther, a sub-player. So up on Dehaka, Melody C on Rega, and Jing Shao on Vala.
Glad you handled all the tough ones, because I've got Soul Tortures on the right side, as we're going to see Zays moving over from that Southeast Asia region. He'll be on the mouth. They all Scroll. I said it this morning at breakfast. I said, I wonder how many games we'll get of Scroll on ETC. If we look back at history, he has dominated on that character. Of course, God Dog on Greymane, Cucumber on Lucio, and Mur, of course, rounding it out on Brightwing.
On the SPT side, I'm still heavily in favor of calling him just Soap.
It's a lot easier to read, but
exactly.
Either way, we've got our game underway here. Both teams going to meet in the middle for now.
You mean it's a lot cleaner?
It's a lot cleaner. I missed it. Low-hanging fruit. Totally missed it.
Okay, so at this point, when we're talking about the entire setup, of course, we have, as heard from the panel, discussed a bit Malthael into Dehaka on that top lane is going to be interesting. But the adjustment that comes from SPT, as they also know it's a losing matchup, is an immediate rotation with Rega as well. So there are actually heavy rotations on the map now from SPT, definitely against what we normally see on this map, not that dedicated 1 versus 1 at the top lane, but instead rotations between top mid and bottom mid.
Yeah, it's a very interesting approach, to say the least. Obviously, when you have Rhaegar on your side, it makes it a little bit easier to get faster rotations because of that clear. Of course, he went Lightning Bond at 1, making that even faster, as he can just kind of double up on that and get that wave clear. But we look like we have a gank coming up here on the top to try and punish that.
Yeah, going straight for Dehaka here and trying to take him down. Zays already attempting to get the final few hits in, but the Dino lives fight another day. So at this point, Soul Tortures showing some aggression, good rotations themselves, putting the pressure onto SPT. And from the get-go, we have a very dynamic start into Game 1.
I like the adaptation there. And we actually heard in our videos that they like to control the pace of the game. And one way to do that is to make sure that your teammate or your enemy can't exactly just get the rotations, and with the counterplay is already there.
It's one of the most interesting statements to me. Well, hold that thought for a second, because we have another fight breaking out up at the top lane. And this time, Dehaka might not be as lucky. A quick burrow saves him for a few seconds, but it's not enough. First ball going over to Soul Torturers as they take the camp.
A nice invade there, not able to get up there in time, and we will have our triple altar phase here. I think the gentleman's agreement in the top will happen, where the action, of course, will pop off there on the middle one, potentially, as level 4 now has been officially picked up by both teams.
Now, Rhaegar, of course, is back to business, and he is going to make his appearance here in just a few seconds. In the meantime, we're already trying to get the channel through Misaka with the attempted Stormbolt, but Cucumber is present and immediately takes the hit here for his teammate, quite literally, and therefore we see Soul Tortures with another Altar channel through, and they take the lead in points on the core.
At the early lead, Calder, I want to get your thoughts on this, because we got SPT, we've seen Vala build, and we've seen a lot of NAEU, especially in the league regions that we have. We've seen a lot of Q build, especially in that solo carry style role for Vala. She's opting for the multi-shot. Do you think we might be missing a little bit of burst damage to try and get through the Lucio sustain, the Brightwing sustain?
Vala is actually a hero that it's probably one of my favorite heroes ever since Alpha, and I was a huge enemy of the Q build when Chris, in particular on the European side, started to play it, and I was always fully in the camp of multi-shot. But as time continued and Chris just showed that worth and other players adapted it, I tried it myself a lot more, and I'm really loving Q build. I can understand that in this case, with how they are rotating, how aggressively they are trying to clear waves, they want to opt for a little bit more clear damage. I think that build has also gave them a huge advantage later on level 16 once they pick up cross shot. But for the early stage of the game and also for the camp control, personally, I would have preferred them to go into the Q build, since at the bot lane, both of the camps are taken just so much faster and so much easier if you have the Q build Vala. But it's also always a choice of preference to an extent, but they have to adapt their playstyle now that they opted into the multi-shot hybrid.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out here, as we do see the camp control here at the bottom, SPT grabbing that. We did see on the mini-map, however, Soul Tortures again making the priority on the top lane. We know how strong the bottom lane is, but they've got a heavy priority here to put the pressure onto Dehaka. You got to imagine once they get control of this top lane, they'll probably look to turn it towards bottom. But right now, the early game, however, SPT will have control, but we've got another altar phase. It is going to be a single altar this time, but 7 versus 7 here. See how it plays out.
And SPT opted to not defend at the top lane, so they couldn't make the rotation in time, but instead they moved down to the bottom of the map, trying to also push heavily in with the help of Vala. But as you said, experience is still pretty even at this point. Soul Torchers have taken a slight lead in XP, but it's nothing too big just yet. But as we see that altar popping up once more on the globals at the top and the bot, they might Brightwing already moving in. Soul Torchers definitely trying to secure that altar.
Asaka trying to get in there. He does get that W down at least at the last moment, but the team is so split in that cocktail. Getting some value there as the burst damage, and right now Soul Torchers has SPT split in zone.
It was a fantastic wedge that Soul Torchers was driving into the composition of SPT here. Zoning out Vala and Uther was worth so much, and especially the cocktail that you pointed out. Greymane doing so much damage with the poke that SPT realized, even if we tap now, we are never going to win a sustained fight over the objective, so they give it up. But they need to be a bit more careful. At the same time, they isolate the target and they get an easy kill against Lucio, immediately saying, hey, we're still here to fight. You haven't won the game just yet, boys.
It's like, hey, let's go for an invade, but hold on, wait a minute. There's a Lucio coming down. Why don't we just jump on him? We've got something called heavy impact. We're going to get that stun lockdown control, and they get that kill.
Yeah, Mirrodin changes definitely making him so much more aggressive, and that's such a huge threat in particular. So that's definitely something to watch out for overall. You know, for me, the interesting thing, and I was already trying to talk about it a bit earlier when we had some fights popping up, is that the Chinese teams in the last few events always came in and said, you know what, we love to play the macro game. We love to dominate the battleground. But traditionally, it's the team fights where they really excel. And to be quite frank, I feel the last few events where they told us over and over again, macro game is what we excel at. This is what we're trying to do. They always fail to do that. So this is something where I have my eyes on SPT, and I want to see if they can deliver this time.
So far, it's 1-1 in terms of kills. 28, however, left on the core of SPT. Slight deficiency as we've got a tongue there landing on Disease, but no real backup damage there. So no fight breaking out there, but the Sapper Camp, of course, a point of contention in that top lane still.
I have to say, though, when we're talking about control, it's really Soul Torchers that are dictating the pace of that game. They are continuously taking the camp at the top. They're putting heavy pressure on Dehaka. They're forcing rotations out of SPT. And talking about SPT, we have a very interesting situation where Rega, after Uther took Divine Shield, is actually holding best his heroic ability. Now, our panel has discussed that there is, with Uther Rega, an option for Divine Storm. But it looks like SPT is actually debating to going into Bloodlust at this point.
Yeah, what if you just flip the script and say, look, they locked it in. It's like, I'll go the offensive heroic because we've got ourselves a potential fight breaking out. Soul Torchers, once again, doing a very good job zoning out. However, God Dog is rotating over, making sure that he's in the fight. Cucumber gets stalled just for a moment by Xing Chao on follow. We've got a fight potentially coming out here as another single altar phase is definitely in place.
And now we have a couple of very interesting situations here where you can, of course, counter the Bloodlust with Emerald Wind on the side of Brightwing, or even just a good sound barrier on the side of Lucio. And that's what has to happen. Here comes the Bloodlust as we see SPT going in. They want to go for the kill, but as predicted, immediately the Emerald Wind as the counterplay.
The Emerald Wind goes out, but we've got a tongue landing on there to ETC, who's trying to get away, and he is going to live for the moment, but ETC is sliding back in, looking for the mosh pit. Not going to hit anybody right now, Caldor.
Yeah, nothing but that space, and now ETC in a bit of trouble. It was a great sound barrier as they moved in, but all of a sudden it's Malfiel who dies first. He goes down at 4 versus 4 as we see Rega die as well. It's a bloodbath as we have Soul Torchers going deep and trying to turn the fight around.
Fallen trying to commit the kill there onto God Dog, unable to do so, taking some damage himself, backing up, but that will be Uther coming in saying, I'm bringing the hammer down. Boom, and that's going to be a 3 versus 4 right now, and right now SPT forcing back Soul Torchers.
But what a fight there. The Bloodlust coming in, and immediately the reaction from Soul Torchers. Emerald Wind pushing them back, then the re-engage from SPT, but a great sound barrier, timed perfectly, and that looked really grim for SPT for a moment. And I think a big part of why Soul Torchers started to look a bit rough was that ETC just completely failed that mosh pit.
And it's, I don't want to say it's a bit surprising, but if you've watched international tournaments for a year plus now, you know the name Scroll is synonymous with ETC. That's how they've been able to surprise people coming in from that region. That's not the typical that we expect, maybe early game jitters, I don't know. I expect that we'll see more plays throughout the day, though.
To be frank, so far, this entire week, we have seen our fair share of failed mosh pits. Now, you don't always have to hit a 4-man with a mosh pit or even 3 heroes. Even a zoning mosh pit at times can be just the perfect choice and can be absolutely intentional. But we have seen a couple of mosh pits that were, let's say, questionable so far.
Questionable, you're like, I really wish the observer wasn't looking at me right now. It's those moments right there, but we've got some pressure here in the bot lane as we see the split up in the top as well. They've had that priority towards the top as they soft defend and hold the keep down here at the bottom. Doing well. We've got ourselves a pretty even games in terms of experience and fairly even in terms of core health.
Yeah, I'm absolutely loving what we are seeing here, and this is what I was hoping for heading into this group. But once again, Lucio, and this is the second time that Cucumber on the rotation gets caught by SPT. He needs to be a bit safer with Lucio. He needs to take the safe paths in these situations. Now his team is in a 5 versus 4 spot as the altars are activating in another 15 seconds.
It was literally the identical spot where he pathed before, and it's just single target blow up is there. The Bird and Uther just stun lock. There's just enough firepower behind that, but we've got ourselves a double altar phase. Brightwing shifting in. We'll see Rhaegar on the minimap splitting off for the bottom one, which means the middle one will be the point of contention here to fight over.
This one's free already. They know that. They have the Haka at the top, and now they can fight over the middle. So we have the shots fired, both teams now on identical points on the core, but here comes the Haka going in with the isolation, immediately trying to see if they can get another kill against Mur here maybe, but the sound barrier comes out. They're holding back on the Emerald Wind. Bloodlust has already been popped during that fight, and so far SPT has got the kill that they're looking for.
Haven't gotten it so far, but they're still looking as we see Feeding Frenzy. Nice burrow under to dodge the power slide by ETC. Mur starting to get the channel on the backside. They're completely zoned out. Misaka gets zoned out there. Nicely done, but we've still got to fight as Tormented Souls is out.
Not a good spot for SPT to be in, and Uther goes down as we see Soul Torture starting to chase and pushing them back. Haka goes down as we see the cocktail come through from Greymane.
That terrifying growl in my ear there was something, but we've got ourselves a game right now. Soul Torturers fighting back, and now they're putting the pressure here on the bot line, but the death timer's a little bit longer. They know they can safely posture up and push in here. Both towers, the gate go down. We've got double sapper camps at the bottom. You can imagine Soul Torturers, after so much priority on the top, it's going to turn their focus to the bot lane.
Outside of Lucio every now and then running it down mid lane, I have to say that Soul Torturers are actually playing a very clean game right now. I absolutely love the way that they are approaching team fights, where especially the two supports are communicating very clearly what they want to do, who's taking the lead, do we disengage with the Emerald Wind, do we go with the sound barrier first here. So every single time that SPT tries to go in with a Bloodlust approach, even with the Haka hitting an immediate isolation, Lucio has his team's back, goes straight for the sound barrier, then Brightwing is safe again and can opt for the Emerald Wind if needed. So I really like the way that they are controlling team fights at this point.
I don't see it too often, but how many dogs outrace a man on roller skates? You're not getting away from that. You're not getting away from that, but speaking of not getting away, there's the stun lock going to be there. Mur taking quite a bit of damage, but the spell shield from that pixie dust helping out.
Whatever I thought we were talking about, that wasn't it. That came out of nowhere. Level 16 talents, on the other hand, have now been hit for Soul Torches, and of course we know that that also means that Lucio is going to hit his biggest power spike. So at this point we have him with, I'm not going to try and pronounce it anymore. I'm always failing.
I never have, because I just don't want to.
I tried a few times in the past, and I thought this might be the moment where I finally step it up again, but I have to admit that at this point I just give up. Rejuvenescentia.
I got you right there. Murray going to get the channel here on the bottom altar for free once more. Soul Tortures every single time, just completely zoning out SPT.
I think I got at least a couple of pity points for that pronunciation. So. But yeah, jokes aside, the talent, of course, I mean, his power spike on 16 is absolutely insane. That doesn't only go for him. When we're talking about Greymane's damage output, that's another big tool that they can use here. Now, SPT, it's already a bit telling if you're looking at their own setup right now that they have actually gone with Muradin, not into the extra jump. You're seeing him with Stone Form here. So Muradin himself, even with a double support, is saying, hey, I'm having trouble here. I already went into healing static on 13, but instead of trying to initiate into the opponent's backline with the range on Warp Toss, he instead goes into Stone Form and says, we somehow have to keep me alive. So this is the most passive build out of any Muradins in this tournament that we have seen thus far. So Misaka playing it very cautiously. And I'm not quite sure if that is necessarily the correct call here. So I'm really curious to see how that's going to pan out for them in the future team fights.
Yeah, because you would imagine he'd try and get on that backside, especially with the Malthael going on Tormented Souls and the Greymane. So I agree with your point. There are a lot of melees, so maybe you can kind of see both sides. But either way, that's a debatable topic. Yeah. But what's not debatable is Sappers coming in bot lane as God Dog stepping very far forward as he's getting eaten alive there by Arena Vengeance. But a nice Z in there from Brightwing, going to keep him alive. They're looking for the re-engage, but SPT walks away.
And we talked about Vala builds at the beginning of the game. And throughout the early and the early mid-game, with an arrow build, I feel you will get a lot more value, especially in the time shortly after you finish your quest talent on 4. But right now, we have 16. And with Frost Shot, all of a sudden, Vala has way more poke potential and also the potential to just slow opponents down. ETC hammered into the ground with multiple stuns, getting chained here. Vala following up with a kill. Not going for Manticore here, but it's really just this extra poke that you have, the range, the safety on Vala, and also the control during the team fight that makes all the difference. So right now, SPT capitalizing on that kill with an immediate call for boss.
I like it, but at the same time, I like Soul Torture's call as well. They recognize that. They instantly went to the bottom. They're going to push in bot lane. They should obtain themselves a keep here. And SPT, in kind, also says, well, look, we're not going to make it down there to defend, so we're going to have to get something in return. They push in top lane.
Yeah, you're making a great point. For them, it would have been a horrible decision to try and somehow get it with Brightwing, using the Emerald Wind and fighting over the boss, maybe stagger depth, so they took the ult at the bot lane. But I also like the reaction from SPT, a quick drop at the boss and then immediately the rotation to the top 4, to the top bell tower and getting that. So now we have once again the altars on the map, and of course the Globals are going to play a huge role here. Already channels starting up, both of the teams looking at level 19 in a few seconds. But SPT has started to equalize the points in the core again. 16 versus 16. Soul Torturers, they claim 4-shot themselves, put SPT down to 12. But right now, as you said, we really have a game on our hands. This is so close.
It's very close. You know, SPT, they wanted to make a call there, but they're on a timer at that point. As we see the picture-in-picture there, there were sappers that were picked up before all that went underway, and those would have pushed in as they do core damage when they reach that depth zone there. Guaranteed if they make it across. So making sure SPT drops out, looking for opportunities elsewhere, and they find it by way of the mid-keep on the side of Soul Tortures.
Yeah, so now we are having, again, Bell Towers claimed here, and of course Soul Torture is going to try and take this one back. Keep in mind that SPT has just reached 20, so we're looking at Storm Talents for them. Vala going into the Farfly Quiver, and therefore having the extra range available to her now, keeping her in an even safer spot against heroes like Malthael and also, of course, Greymane. Soul Torture, on the other hand, I'm really saying this is going to be pretty brutal once we have 20 versus 20, and it's very difficult against the double support setup that we see from Soul Tortures after Lucio's power spikes. And with the way they've been controlling team fights, SPT has to be careful here. It's still a close game. Even kill score as well, but there is not going to be an advantage for SPT outside of that extra bell tower that they just claimed with
I want to talk about a couple juicy level 20s here. We're seeing an upgrade to the 20th adaptation, but we're also seeing an upgrade to Divine Storm. And on this map, Kaldor, we know what that upgrade can do, especially in these close games where you get the channel. Tell me about it.
I'm actually surprised that he insta-locked it.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought he would wait and then adapt situationally. Now, if you actually take the extra seconds on your 20, you can nearly channel an entire altar through. So if you time it properly and you get a bit of a head start, you can cheese an altar and then maybe decide the game in your favor. The problem is I don't really see a need to take it this early here, especially given the situation where on one hand we have 16 hit points on the side of Soul Tortures, 12 for SPT. I would have expected him to hold the talent back and then decide in the situation, okay, what do we need here?
100% agree, and we've got a 20 versus 20, 16 versus 12 core health for the side of Soul Tortures versus SPT. Double altar phase going to be interrupted at the bottom. We've got both altars right now being contested with a small skirmish here as we have a look in, but the double stun. The Z-In from Brightwing's going to get the shield, going to get the peekaboo. They're going to try to have the fight as the sound barrier goes out.
Yeah, and this time the supports on the side of Soul Tortures with a slight panic moment here, using sound barrier and Emerald Wind at the same time in an attempt to save God Dog on Greymane, which they actually did, but they lose out on the altar. It was a fantastic move by Dehaka, going in jumping immediately on Greymane, but then the support saved him, but they used both cooldowns. Now Malthael popping the Dominant Souls, trying to go deep here. Misaka is zoned away from the rest of the team, and Godok is trying to follow it up with a quick kill against him, but Muradin still on the run, drops Avatar and is able to make it out.
Oh, maybe let's get juiced up here as the Avatar comes out, but the Alter's trying to be channeled here by Cucumber. I don't know if they've got the poke. They find themselves in a bad spot. Scroll doing the zoning, keeping everybody out, but we see Muradin sneaking in one more time. The tongue's gonna be there, and down goes ETC.
ETC dead again. Stroll with a lot of trouble, never even used his mosh pit. Now Muradin jumps in once again with the sound barrier again being popped here, but it's not enough. Here comes the isolation, and down goes Malthael. SPT following up the kill against ETC with another drop on Malthael, who immediately buys back and is on his way into the battle.
Now the zoning comes from SPT as they're on the backside. They're the ones getting the channel. And, you know, we can actually call the isolation. You know, you get that big old thing on your head. We call it bobblehead night here. You know, if you've been in any sporting events since you've been here in the U.S. Bobblehead night. That's what we call it. Just bobblehead for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. And his silences actually were absolutely fantastic so far. It was the initiation at the ad there immediately. And if, as you said, if you get the value out of the Haka when he moves in with the 20, it's insane what you can do to a team fight, especially if you hit the supports and Soul Torturers does not have that disengaging moment, then this single Dehaka play can make all the difference in the team fight. So you're absolutely right.
The scary thing about this when it comes to the bot lane late game, Caldor, is that we have the potential for a single altar phase, which could be bottom lane. And when you don't have control of the bell tower on your side, it's tough. You can force the rotation out as we've got a potential boss start being here. But when you have the sapper camps, it forces the rotation out. You have the same potential top lane. However, now they're forced to rotate bottom. And this play right here by SPT, they're going to get that extra core. Now they're only one altar away. Oh, by the way, Caldor, we already talked about that Divine Shield upgrade. One altar. Not too shabby.
So now all of a sudden we have the extra 2 seconds on the Divine Shield, and this is going to make things very, very awkward for Soul Torturers. I have to say that SPT, first when they went for boss, they didn't immediately initiate on it. They waited until they had vision on the bot lane so that they knew it was a safe call. And I like that a lot, since we've seen a lot of teams coming back into a match and then throwing it with an overly aggressive call. So very well played by SPT. I like that a lot. The problem that I currently have is that Soul Torturers just felt, to me personally, throughout the entire game, like they had a huge amount of control. And in the last team fight, that's where they all of a sudden showed nerves, showed panic, and now they lost not only the lead, but they are, as you said, with the upgrade on 24.
Soul Torturers,
so close.
They cannot hesitate here, Caldor. If they let somebody get a 1 second channel and then the D shield comes out, it's over. They cannot. They have to put the pressure on right now. They're postured up. They're trying to get there. Misaka trying to stall it out. He gets the Stormbolt out to Haka coming in on the backside. The power slide's going to be there, and now we see they're moving in. SPT looking for that inch that they need. They're holding that D shield for the moment.
Stroll has to step it up right now. In the last few fights, he didn't look good, and we need the value out of Mosh Pit and his 2020. That needs to happen. He's under a lot of pressure, and as you said, the 5 second channel here, you only need channel for a second, and then you can go through. Here comes the Bloodlust as they go in, and again, ETC blown up there. Haka with the isolation. The Bloodlust comes in, they can't save him. He goes down, a 5 versus 4, and SPT is on their way to victory. Can Malthael change the fight?
Zay's going in. He got the kill on to Dehaka. Now they're continuing to put the pressure on. As we see on the backside, it's going to go down. Rhaegar is going to, Greymane is going to fall there as they continue to put the pressure on. That's 3 members down on the side of Soul Torturers. And now it's basically cleanup duty from this point on. And it looks like SPT doing excuse me. Zays is like, hold on.
Late game out there, been good.
He's not too shabby. He's going to be back on the battleground, but he's not going to be here in time. That is going to be SPT taking game number 1.
SPT getting the original kill in the fight, and then Malthael nearly turning it around with the kill against Dehaka. But in the end, it's just the Chinese team being a bit too strong. Very impressive performance by Soul Torturers, though. And for me, really, the weak point this time was ETC. Now, to be fair, ETC was heavily targeted in the last few fights. It was him always getting isolated, getting dragged immediately, and a lot of the focus that we saw from from SPT was on the front liner. Drop him, make sure he can't use his mosh pit, and you win the battle. And they executed it extremely well. But given that Stroll in the past was so known for his ETC play, I have to say that I expected him to be a little bit stronger at the setup.
Look, we got a sneak peek in the background. Follow that game at 157,000 damage with 102,000 on the opposite side of Greymane. That guy was going off. Jing Chao, we know that name. And I know some other names that are over there at the desk that would also like to talk about this game. Probably got some insight for us. Let's send it back over to the analysis concave.
That's right. Thank you very much, Shay Howe. Getting the name perfectly right there as well. I appreciate that. Now, what we saw there was actually SPT, as much as they did fall behind a little bit at the beginning, and it was a very good game to start off the day, may I add, they stuck to their game plan in those team fights to a T, constantly kept executing, and then towards the later stages of the game, were able to be victorious.
I honestly didn't think that they were going to be able to pull it out. How the first couple of minutes ended up happening, and to be honest, I don't think they would have if it wasn't for Scroll getting caught out near the top boss. That was really kind of the breaking point of momentum for SPT to find themselves back even in experience and then be able to take an even team fight into Soul Torturers. Granted, from that point on, they really were displaying, I mean, very good team fight capabilities, but ultimately I do feel like it was just those picks allowed them to come back into the game.
But I think Misaka on Muradin was phenomenal. So many picks all over the map, really good control, full tank build as well, so he was very survivable. Really liked his Muradin play here. And of course, Chen, Xiao, and Vala, sublime.
Yeah, I think all the players on SPT had a moment of where they kind of exploded and showed where their heroes spiked up. For me, it was level 20 with the Vala and, of course, the Haka, Contagion. Contagion won that team fight at the end. It landed on ETC, but it also extended to Brightwing, which prevented her from using Emerald Wind to save the ETC and allow for the Soul Torturers to win the team fight. Absolutely brilliant play by every single member of SPT. And I agree. The early game, I was looking at him and I was like, not so much. It's not going to happen. Like, Isolation missed 3 times on Brightwing trying to interrupt the Emerald Wind, which started to become Vala trying to use Rain of Vengeance, and there were some moments of non-clarity, but they really pushed it towards the end.
One more really cool thing is I thought that we're going to have a little bit of a lack of damage on the side of SPT. How about Bloodlust? Everyone extra attack speed. That was freaking cool in true China fashion.
Yeah, very rare we get to see Bloodlust.
To pick that Bloodlust into an Emerald Wind Brightwing, because usually if you see that, you pop Emerald Wind and you run away.
When Bloodlust was actually the go-to heroic, that was legitimately the direct counter in the meta, was if you see a Bloodlust Rhaegar, you go, we need Brightwing 100%, Emerald Wind disengage to match it.
And that's why I said at the beginning of all of this, they executed their plan to a T, constantly going for that isolation on the Brightwing and being able to try and shut that down in synergy with the Bloodlust. We're going to hear a short word from our sponsors, and when we return, game number 2 here between SPT and ST.
The 2017 Heroes Global Championship Finals are brought to you in part by Republic of Gamers, Intel, T-Mobile, and NVIDIA.
Welcome back. I'm sure you missed us in that 5 seconds, but we are back. Don't worry at all, as we have game number 2 on the way in a few moments' time. SPT looks good towards the later stages of that game, no denying that. But Soul Torturers still definitely had moments there where they were putting on good pressure. Even something like the Malthael was very difficult for them to deal with for a lot of that game.
That game 1 has spiked my hopes for this entire group right now, honestly. ST looking great, expecting Taiwan to do well, but SPT was definitely the question mark going into this match. I was really worried for them, and I didn't think they would be able to pull it off. And for the first few minutes, I was like, all right, well, bye, SPT. It was good seeing you for the 3rd tournament in a row. But they really warmed up. They seem ready to go. And going into game number 2, I am excited for this entire group.
I have to, completely agree with that. The level of play that we saw from both sides of the table has kind of been very impressive. I did think that SPT would be a lot more dominant in that game than they were. It did feel like it kind of took them a while to kind of warm up, and they ultimately did feel like they were relying into their old school strategy with the Muradin, getting the dive, relying on the picks that we expect out of the Chinese region to be able to recover. And I do question, when you were talking about the game plan that they stuck to, would a better team, after it was successful in one skirmish, would they be able to adapt effectively and dodge the Brightwing, be a little bit more defensive?
Thoughts, Grubby?
Well, my thoughts were that this game could have gone very differently. Like ETC, Scroll, obviously he had some difficulties, but if he just picked another level 20 talent, the whole game could have looked differently as well. It is true that ETC can feel very fragile in the later stages of the game. Everyone's damage ramps up. So maybe if he has Bolt of the Storm, Storm Shield, that would have worked out better than something like Turbas, which is just making his ult better, but he never got to use it, so might as well have had another. Hindsight, of course, but just these little things can make a difference. So I'm excited for game 2.
Makes sense, makes sense. Of course, a lot of people have some faith here in SPT. 61% of you at the moment on Twitter voting for SPT. And I think ever since they started truly residing at the very top of China, a lot of people have been kind of taking note of that. Let's head to the second battleground. Where are we going to be going? And it will be Tomb of the Spider Queen, chosen by Soul Torturers.
Interesting. Soul Torturers going to Tomb of the Spider Queen is one that they've mentioned in the past that they enjoy, but SPT at the last Eastern Clash, I know they talked a little bit about Dragonshire, but they mentioned that Tomb of the Spider Queen was one of their favorite battlegrounds. They even mentioned a couple of unorthodox strategies they had been working on, but didn't get to pull it out, so I'm kind of wondering if we might actually get to see that from SPT today.
Soul Torturers, though, have displayed that this is a map that they're very comfortable on. With the Infernal Shrines ban going out, it is within their top 3 priorities, so I'm not surprised to see them go into this direction. But it does, you know, it is questionable, again, with that Dragonshire and SPT kind of going, this is our map, we love macro play. Yeah. You automatically go, well, this team is comfortable with the 1-4, they're comfortable with prioritizing wave clear, which is necessary on 2.
All right, going into game number 2 here. In game number 1, we had SPT sating half of their revenge with a Bloodlust. And will we continue down the line? Currently, SPT leads 1-0 against Soul Torturers.
Tassadar banned out. Been seeing that pretty often. Before we move straight into this draft as aggressively as we are already, actually, Ariel being banned out now, what did you guys think about Saw here for SPT?
I think he had moments where...
That was a strategy.
He had moments that, you know, I was pleasantly surprised, specifically his late Divine Shield on the bottom team fight. He was very, very patient and understood when it was necessary to get it off, but I also felt like sometimes you could see that he was maybe out of his comfort zone, willing to use cooldowns that weren't necessary in the situations. So I feel like room for improvement, but this game, you know, it might be able to show a brighter side of him.
Trick, I'm glad we're back to the meta I appreciated most.
Story time.
Fire Lord.
Everyone asked me kind of where I started playing Lava Wave from and why I started playing Ragnaros. SPT talked about it a little bit at the Eastern Clash behind closed doors, and that's when I started playing it. And
they are your
strength. They are the inspiration of why I started playing Ragnaros. Now, I don't think we're getting Lava Wave here. Lava Wave was kind of my own like movement in towards the Lava Wave, but the Ragnaros on this battleground, they're like, we don't understand why he's not being played. We think he's broken on this battleground. They didn't show at the Eastern Clash. I started dabbling into Ragnaros, and it's because of them.
This is very cool. Let's just point out to people that may not watch a lot of Heroes esports, Ragnar's first pick is extremely unusual right now. Garrosh a lot more so, but that is such a big prioritization on that Ragnaros that early on.
And what Ragnaros' biggest strengths are on a map like Tomb is because of his defensive capabilities, and the win conditions on Tomb are very difficult to identify if you improperly use your Webweaver phase. And so what this is going to do for the members of SPT, it makes it to where Soul Torturers needs to be very, very effective with every Webweaver phase that they have, and by the fact that they've committed to a Garrosh Lucio, concentrated into kill potential within the 4-man, 0 wave clear with those 2 picks, I immediately go, they have to gank very consistently to this in this game, and these Webweaver phases, they need to be perfect. They have to be very aggressive with them, otherwise Ragnaros will be a problem.
Yeah, if Soul Torturers does not get pick-offs, just to simplify it, they will fall behind. They have no wave clear right now, and 3 will not make up for whatever SPT might be bringing here. So that's a great point, Dreadnought. And let's see if SPT is going to extrapolate on those wave clear heroes.
On a map, though, this is where something like Garrosh, mid and upper, thrives.
It is one of the best opportunities because this cooldown is so very short to be able to get the pull in and get the flip over, but it is also reliant on having wave clear in another way, shape, or form so that you aren't constantly chasing SPT. When you are the one struggling in wave clear, if you have kill potential, it doesn't matter because you're always having minions push into your side, which means your rotations are going to be essentially shown to your opponent very easy, and that gank potential drops drastically whenever that isn't there. And without the Rhaegar now, that was the one tool that I thought they might be able to rely on to give on top of Garrosh so he can be in the middle of the minions, wave clearing and being a threat. It's off the table now, so it's going to be, again, another setback here for Soul Torturers.
But it's a very cool early game so far. Lucio gives move speed to Garrosh to get in position for the pull-in combo. Gems that get picked up put a hero in a predictable location for a Garrosh flip. But on the other hand, you have ETC with his face melt that can push Garrosh away. It doesn't put his pull in on a full cooldown, but it can interrupt it and it can save someone from getting tossed. So there's a lot of play and counterplay in that early game already.
The interruption is definitely nice. With this type of composition, it's a great foundation for Soul Torturers, but I feel like there's a rule of 4 for me. If you go for 4 attempts on a kill and you don't get one in the early game, you start to feel a bit behind with Too Much Spider Queen. So I'm really hoping to see Soul Torturers get those kills, but SPT has responded well. They have Ragnaros, he can play safe in the bottom lane. He's one of those heroes that is very great at just being defensive. He doesn't have to do too much. It's very easy for him to dance around.
As long as he doesn't go for the Q stack
Exactly.
quest on this map, that can really make him overextend dangerously.
That's why I really like that Living Meteor quest at level 1 there. I think it's wonderful playing safe. You're able to get the stacks pretty easily, and it does pretty well as you scale in the late game with the 3% extra damage per a tick that you get when you finish off that quest, being able to maneuver it twice. Ana being banned out here for SPT, and I actually don't mind it. We saw a lot of Ana, and it seemed like Kyoja in particular was really great at the blind sleep darts. And if you have a sleep dart on a target, Garrosh walks up, gets the easy flip.
Great combination there. Ana will get removed.
A pick rotation that I wouldn't mind to see for the Soul Torturers after the Vala ban. I'm assuming we're going to see ourselves a Grey main, but with that, again, on that wave clear note and some of the concern I have for them, one hero that could make up for it is a Leoric. On a map like Tomb, he is very, very powerful. It doesn't necessarily immediately synergize with like the Garrosh, because Garrosh obviously wants to get that one shot, one kill whenever he flips you over, and the long sustained fight is what Leoric thrives in. But Lucio does synergize pretty well with the Leoric as well, so I'd like to see them maybe try and make up for it there, because Arthas...
I'd like Arthas.
It synergizes with the Lucio for the team fight, but I think it struggles on, because it's not exiting the format. He's going to be in a solo, so they need wave clear to be able to be clearing 2 waves at once, and Arthas is just kind of a one-man lane.
You could kind of do Arthas in the format, maybe.
You can, but then you have to have a solo, which is going to be a Sonya or some kind of melee, and you typically stack so melee heavy.
Yeah, you don't want 3 warriors Lucio, probably.
Yeah, the only situation where that typically you can get away with that, I didn't think they would go into the Kel'Thas, but that makes up for all the wave clear and the burst potential that I was wondering if they were going to aim for. So the Kel'Thas went across my mind while you guys were talking before, but I didn't think they would commit to it. I really, really like it. It just requires an insane amount of synergy from Soul Torturers.
Yeah, typically I prefer the Gul'dan into a Rhaegar. You get the ability for the Rhaegar, if he ever goes for a Feral Lunge, drop a Horrify, and then you just melt him down.
Power level is slightly lower in general, which is why we don't see him as much, but he does fill every gap of what Soul Torturers needed, right?
Yeah.
The wave clear, follow up on Garrosh, he's just easily pummeled and punished. More so even than Gul'dan, because Gul'dan has that Drain Life, he's got that Horrify.
Yeah, the only other, kind of niche hero that fills those parameters, but not as well as Kel'Thas, is kind of like the Jaina, where you have to use your Blizzard to get the wave clear, but it's those 2 heroes are very much focusing on, you have a little bit of wave clear, but you also have the opportunity to get those kills. But KT has managed to pull, or excuse me, Kel'Thas has managed to pull ahead quite effectively. I'm still getting over the change, all right? I'm not a Warcraft boy.
It's Falstad Greymane, that means single support SPT. Interestingly, single support is sitting at a 60% win rate in this tournament so far, whereas double support is 47%. So as much as we expected an inundation of double support, first single support is winning out so far. Falstad Greymane.
The rounds things out. I enjoyed giving you that playful scowl when you called Kel'Thas what you did.
It was a stern look, to say the least.
He is the only one up here that cares about the lore as much. He will ream us all.
Now, just to reiterate, I did say playful at the beginning of that. All right.
You say playful, I say scary. I'm a little bit intimidated by you now.
Yeah, I'll be honest, off camera, I'm a bit of a hard-out about it.
Is it okay to call Kel'Thas KT and then call Kel'Thas Kelly?
I mean, I don't know if this is the time or the place where we come to a consensus on what Kel'Thas' new abbreviation is going to be, but I think the KT Kel'Thas is a safe bet.
I say do you, Grubby. Just do you.
I swear you pushed this on your stream once.
Trying to make it a movement.
Nah, I see.
It's the most unambiguous way of actually, introducing them.
Right, nice. But overall, what are we thinking about the comps? How do these kind of play out in terms of the stages of the game? Who has more power? Early game, moving through the stages?
From beginning to end, I feel like SPT has a pretty large advantage. Late game team fighting, they may struggle because Ragnaros can kind of fall off if you didn't get the macro pressure and impact that you were looking for when you ended up getting the draft, especially as a first pick lock in here in this type of game. But SPT doesn't even have to run traditional laning, and they'll still be dominant in their laning. It's only just avoiding the Garrosh Kel'Thas, man, we're all over the place with that now, the Kel'Thas combo, and trying to be able to avoid that. That is the only thing I see them relying on, or why they would be successful.
I actually feel somewhat the opposite. I do see that, definitely, but I actually feel like Soul Torturers has everything that they need here. A lot of stuns, they've got the pull in. I think they can I wouldn't call it snowball, but I think they can do very well indeed. And I'm actually liking Soul Torturers here a little bit more.
Trixler, you need to be my tiebreaker.
Yeah, man, it's a hard one because like you look at all the wave clear for Tomb of the Spider Queen, and you can't just ignore SPT. But you look at ST and you saw the aggression we had in the early game last game, and if they can mirror that in Tomb of the Spider Queen, I see those picks coming in.
The one major selling point for me that puts me into the SPT avenue over Soul Torturers, the wave clear is safe, yes, it's nice, but the biggest thing is we have a Malthael into a Falstad and Lucio into a Falstad. Malthael, I've talked about it, I think he loses all traits. Lucio is even harder because he's so dependent on his heroic and he's late game focus. So they have a late game focus, support with only one damage dealer to get the follow-up onto Garrosh. The odds of surviving that is just very, very likely, and I do feel like that's going to be too much to handle.
All right, well, divided opinions here on the desk. Let's see how it's going to play out overall, though. Always great to hear the opinions in their entirety. As we now head over to our commentary team for game number 2.
From towers to tomb, from not killing a core to molten core, and fire versus fire, we've got game number 2 of Super Perfect Team. Took game number 1 going up against Soul Torturers.
Yeah, and we have very interesting drafts as well. There's a lot of late game potential when we're looking at Soul Torturers here with Malthael, with the Divine Shield, and on top of that, of course, you have also KT. So you can do a lot with that. But I agree with Red that if you have a Gust on Falstad, you can really mitigate a lot of the pressure that comes out from Soul Torturers. So the execution is going to matter here. And especially I'm curious to see how far ahead SPT can pull in the early game where they should have an advantage.
The drafts have been pretty excellent so far. And what was also excellent was game 1, but we're going to find out what happens here in game 2 as we get ready for Super Perfect Team versus Soul Torturers.
And of course, the Super Perfect Team is already ahead in the series, meaning if they win now on Tomb of the Spider Queen, they will pull ahead and we will see them later on in the winners match. At this point, I'm also curious to see how Ragnaros is going to work out for them. We've seen quite a bit of the hero in the tournament thus far with mixed success. Jing Shao here on Greymane this time. We have a Melody C on Falstad. Misaka is on ETC up at the front line. Soap on Ragnaros. Very clean play from him in the last game. And Sa on Rhaegar.
You're a dork. On the right side, Soul Torturers. We're going to have Zaze one more time on Malthael. See what he can do. Mur, of course, his buddy from Singapore, moving over to that Taiwanese region. Going to be on the Uther, supporting him. Scroll on the Garrosh Cucumber on Lucio. And Goddog, all eyes on the flames of Kel, Thas, KT, Tower Dubbening.
I'm really hyped for this one because, first of all, I want to see how much value does Garrosh really get for Soul Torturers. Then we have talked a lot about Ragnaros. We've seen a lot of Lava Wave play actually on this map in particular. And the question is always, how do you use it? Are you trying to claim a structure by using it with a push? Are you trying to get some off-lane pressure away from the fight? And the first thing that we learned in this game is that from both teams, their spray game is absolutely on point.
It's working out well. You know, we were talking about this before when we were watching the draft about like all the AoE damage. Zay is in a lot of trouble. Good body block's going to be. He's ripping some souls, but he's not ripping enough. Lucio not able to make it down first blood of the game, but there's a lot of, I guess, AoE damage is going to be difficult for Rhaegar to deal with. And even early, there's a lot of displacement. Getting the early saves on the side of SPT are going to be particularly interesting, although they were the ones that had the first death.
This is why actually the early game is so key for me personally when you look at SPT, because I think they need to try and get ahead here. In the late game, Rhaegar is going to have some trouble to deal with the late game Malthael and the late game Heltas. So if there is not going to be that fantastic Mighty Gust that negates all the tormented soul value or sound barrier value, then I think there could be a massive problem for SPT in late game fights. So for them, it would be ideal to snowball a bit early, get the first turn into an objective, whereas Soul Torturers are probably very happy to just like trade evenly in the mid and late game and then try to find their victory at the end of the match. At this point, we have Ragnaros in a lot of trouble, and buddy, you can run, but you cannot hide.
I was so close to just complimenting this because Trixler made a very good point on the desk about how it might be more advantageous to go Living Meteor, not stepping out, trying to get those Q stacks. Sometimes you don't want to just clear the lane. You want that lane to come to you, but getting those Q stacks obviously are a very beneficial thing, but when you get punished like that, obviously it hurts, and that's one of the reasons that the trick made. I think right there it showed. We'll see if he has a bit more cautious approach. I was going to compliment the fact that they put Falstad bottom, Ragnaros top, kind of mixing it up so he would be safer, but they rotated pretty hard on it.
Yeah, it didn't last very long, did it? So we have at this point a kill on both sides. Both of the teams are on level 4. Turn-in so far going quite well for Soul Torture with 25. And they are aggressive here. It's actually really interesting to me how aggressive they are with their comp. With Garrosh, of course, you're always looking for those flips, but they are not simply sitting back and waiting for him to get a combo off. They are aggressively rotating on the lanes, using Lucio as just speed boost alone to have that quick rotation. And that's also one of the areas where Lucio, of course, excels on this map in particular. And they're getting the most out of it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And so far, it's been a bit surprising. But Tomb of the Spider Queen, obviously, when you get that first Web Weaver turn-in, when you get closer to 10, this game will heat up quite a bit. Right now, obviously, we see the heavy rotations, getting the globes, of course, for Kel'Thas at level 1. Once he gets those 20, his mana pool is incredible. He gets more every time he gets one, but he also gets that shield, which can help keep him alive once he has 20.
Especially against, of course, also Greymane here, who will look for those kills against Kel'Thas. But then again, we're having 2 supports on the side of Soul Torturers, and they complement each other quite nicely. It's not only the utility that they give you with stuns, boosts, and speed boost, but also the burst heal over the heal over time. Really crucial. And we pointed out the damage output towards the late game for Soul Torturers. Let's not forget about the also famed level 16 for Lucio, where all of a sudden it's going to become even harder for SPT to kill the heroes on the side of the Taiwanese team.
So with all that being said, the potential Divine Shield, the potential shield from the Mana Addict for Kel'Thas, do you think we'll see a little bit of smash action or some wave action going on there from Ragnaros? I know which one you want.
Yeah, I want the smash here for sure. I really want to see them trying to capitalize on a good stun from ETC, for example. But to be honest, so far at this tournament, especially from teams from the Asian regions, we have seen a huge focus on Lava Wave. And a lot of them that you talk to are actually very much in favor of using Lava Wave on this map in particular. So that's the one thing that I really want to see how it happens. I'm actually... While I am against it, I think if you take it, there are ways to get value.
All right, look, all I'm just going to say is if you bent even 5-10%, I will say that Trick has officially rubbed off on you. It is now fully confirmed that Trixler has sold you on the Lava Wave meta. Thank you, Trixler. As we saw another pick there, again for Soul Torturers. You cannot go back on it, Caldor. It is recorded in history.
I don't think that's quite what I said. But, all right, I'll take that beating for now. 3 kills against 1 in favor of Soul Torturers. Very good standing for them here in the early game. Very impressive, and they get the first Web Weaver wave. So the Web Weavers are descending. They're doing well here. And I have to say that right now, Soul Torturers are actually starting to impress a lot. That happened in the last game as well, and it was SPT who in the late game then changed it up. So the game is going to be a different game after level 10, obviously. But so far, Soul Torturers is doing fantastic.
Soul Torturers is saying, look, we're expecting you guys to potentially clump up and spread some fire because level 7 Sun King's Fury, when that Living Bomb spreads, it does more damage. Generally, we see the Q build kind of come out there to get that percentage-based damage when you get 2 or more heroes.
But we talked about AoE damage thanks to Malthael, and now Kel'Thas just stacks up on that. What we've also seen is with Molten Core, Ragnaros doing something where he absolutely excels at on this map in particular. He stalls out the game and he brings you to the late game. The question is just who is going to have that bigger advantage there. And so far, most of us were heavily in favor of Soul Torturers towards the late game. So I'm really excited to see how this works out because Soul Torturers impressed me on the first map. SPT, in the end, were victorious, but let's find out if Soul Torturers can actually make this a 1-1 and force map 3.
Now they're getting a few more gems turned in for the moment. Scroll, of course, trying to hold there. There's a nice cleanse onto Kel'Thas, making sure there's no follow-up. But we've got an aggressive flight in there onto the garage. That's going to be a takedown, but in return, that fire is spreading. The damage is there. Not enough to confirm a counter kill, but they are still holding their ground.
Really well done with that heavy aggression from SPT. Definitely is saying we are still in this, getting that kill against Garrosh and forcing Soul Torturers back. It also helps them to get their own turn in. So now they're not in that situation where a double wave leads to an early level 10 and starts to snowball for Soul Torturers. They get their own objective, and they are actually about to hit the level 10 spike too, so this is a perfect timing window for them to get some value out of it.
I'm really wondering, it feels like a team is going to have to get some type of kill, double turn-in, potential, maybe a boss, to try and get to that snowball to find it, because once you get to 13, 16 for Kel'Thas, the cooldown, plus the double Q on his Flame Strike going out there, very well defensively. You already highlighted the Ragnaros as well. And so, late game, it could be there, and we get something locked in there.
Thank God it's Sulfura Smash. I was dreading the moment where I actually have to talk about the advantages of Lava Wave on this map and how to properly use it. So Tim would have had a field day out of this, but we have the better ult without even question. So yeah, Sulfura Smash trying to capitalize on an ETC pre-stun. And I mean, with this setup, all by their side. You get the stun with ETC, you try to slide in, and then immediately you follow that up with Sulfura Smash, and who's there to get the kill? It's Greymane. So it's really that burst damage that you have. Now, of course, you have to play around a couple of cooldowns. You have to make sure that Uther, for example, is not able to save the target with a quick Divine Shield.
He just held that. He just locked that in, too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you make a great point, is that if you can get that blow-up style target, it's going to be there. So Sulfura Smash is going to go down, and we got the one-man mosh pit. That will confirm the kill on the Malthael. Just out of range. I'm not sure if that hit directly on, but it definitely helped contribute to that.
Yeah, it definitely contributed to the kill in the end there, and they committed a lot of resources to it. So that's the one, I don't want to call it a problem just yet, but it's definitely an investment. You invest a lot of cooldowns to get that kill, so you need to make sure that you get value out of it. Usually that value is in a kill, but if you can just burn a few cooldowns on the opponent's side, that might just be enough for the team fight. Right now, SPT definitely gaining a bit of momentum, have another objective that they now claimed, and let's see how much damage they can do with that. There's still 2 forts on the side of Soul Torturers, in the mid and at the top lane.
We actually saw the Phoenix being used there by Kel'Thas to try and clean that lane up. Of course, the Web Weavers spawn up in the lane as far as your minion wave is, so making sure to at least push that back a little bit was there, but it felt like maybe a little bit of a misuse.
I'm lobbing Falset right now. All the way down at the bot lane, pushing with the Web Weavers while the rest of the team is splitting top and is heavily pushing there. So now Falset is already knocking onto the gate at the keep and can always fly back. Ragnaros is even anchoring him here, making sure that nobody can sneak in, but he himself needs to be careful. Garrosh comes in, they're trying to get the kill, but the Ancestral Healing is there.
The Ancestral's there, but the Sound Barrier out in return, and there's that gush you talked about. It's isolated Zaze as the Tormented Souls has worn off, not able to get the engage that they wanted, but SPT did get the XP that they needed as they're 13 to 12. They're going to be short on gems, but they're going to try and get some additional structure damage as we see the response in the bot lane from Soul Torturers on the minimap. They can't stray too far because the boss, of course, is one of those things up at the top.
And they're opening up the keep, and the cool thing about this is really how they put Falsa into a good spot, because if they do that, they need to be very careful that he does not get engaged upon and gets taken out there. But they always played with vision, they anchored for him and made sure that he was safe, and then once the fight started, he immediately flew in, could provide the gust, isolate even Malthael, and they were able to move back from this. So they get the value through the objective, they're trying to play the map and control it with macro game as much as they can with their composition here. So far, I'm really liking the way they're approaching this.
Oh, you cannot walk into a bush. Kel'Thas instantly deleted. There's Scrolls trying to walk away as we see Xing Xiao trying to do more damage, but that is a major mistake there, Caldor.
Yeah, at this point, Uther is switching Divine Shield to Quick Cast.
That's a bitter pill to swallow, because we actually saw Scroll go up and check the boss. He face-checked the bushes up there, but they had the wherewithal to understand, hey, we've got to check, they've got to be somewhere, but not in one of the most obvious positions in the map. Kind of feels bad.
Now, there's a fantastic Haka video out there that teaches you not to face-check bushes. And
oh, really?
Yeah.
I think I might have seen that one.
It's a good one, right?
Yeah, I think it was starring Caldor.
Hi, my name is Sins. So we have Kel'Thas in this case really in a position where he shouldn't have been. Being that close there and immediately engaged upon was a problem. Now you can argue that Uther, if he reacts lightning fast here and has those Panther reflexes, might have been able to throw down the Divine Shield, and then we come back to the original discussion. If you Divine Shield that target and it does not get blown up, all of a sudden you committed heavily with all the heroic abilities and resources on the side of SPT. But at this point, they're getting the value out of the combo every single time. They blew up already Kel'Thas now twice. We had kills earlier happening here, and their strategy is definitely working out for them.
Right now, Soul Torturers trying to get a turn in, trying to buy some real estate on this map back from SPT as they have all the lanes pushed out. And one of the things that you can do is to get those lanes pushed out, but in return, we've got some Web Weavers now turned in by SPT. This is the area where they're going to try and snowball. You've got the cooldown reduction for Kel'Thas, but you don't have the double flame strike, so it's going to be a very, very difficult defense here for Soul Torturers. I wouldn't be surprised if they lose a keep, and they got to be careful they don't lose more.
And SPT is pulling all the stops. I love how they're approaching this. They get the kill, they go for boss, they turn in again. They have Falset splitting through the rest of the team. pushing through the bot lane. There is enormous pressure on Soul Torturers and all the lanes right now, and that added experience that we see for SPT resulting in the early level 16 talent makes the defense for Soul Torturers incredibly difficult. Their best hope right now is to just sit tight, defend their keeps, try to gather gems after gems, and then once that they have finally level 16, try and push out to get turned in themselves. But this is going to be extremely difficult, especially since SPT is already hoping to take down a keep before 16 approaches for the Soul Torturers.
We've seen a pretty good approach so far by Soul Torturers, but Scroll, the Sulfurous Smash going out, he gets the heal, he gets the armor, he's going to be there. Now we see the Web Weaver pushing into the mid keep. So far, the defense has been holding for Soul Torturers, and it looks like they should be able to hold on to all of their keeps, and that is a major win for Soul Torturers right now.
Yeah, definitely, especially with Ragnaros also committing to the Sulfura Smash, not waiting for a pre-stun. Says, hey, I got this, but then he misses out on the stun, and Garrosh walks away, so that was an issue. But talking about Garrosh, he's in the middle of things. That's the Divine Shield. He has 27 gems. They can't lose him here. And again, a problem that we saw in the last game towards the end, and Soul Torturers start to panic a little bit. The two supports are starting to slack on their communication. We had some very well-timed heroics previously, but right now they dropped the Sound Barrier and the Divine Shield to save Garrosh. There's just not enough communication to hold at least one of the cooldowns back.
Garrosh has a count called Double Down. I guess they decided we can double down as well on heroics. But
they should.
Right now, Soul Torturers really close to 16. That is when Kel'Thas becomes so dangerously strong and so defensively strong in the Wave Clear. He gets the double Flame Strike at 16. The cooldown reduction obviously there at 13. So those pushes that we saw from Soul Torturers will even be easier as it goes on. And right now it's up to Soul Torturers, well, even Talonteers, to find a position to try and get a pick. And instead, they get the toss over as Masaka is going to have to power slide out to sea.
Yeah, we're finally in a spot where they have level 16. And we talked a lot about the power spikes that they have around that Talontier. With Lucio's extra heal, with Benediction coming in for Uther, with, of course, also Malthael starting to become stronger and stronger in this late game scenario. Now, they have to wait for the cooldowns that they banned previously to save Garrosh. That's another 15 seconds for Uther. But they have the gems for the double turn-in. And that's really what they need to try and accomplish now. They need to push out. They're forced to look for a fight right now and to at least get the objective. Because the one thing that really works in their favor is there's a lot of forts still on the side of SPT and towers as well. So if they get two Web Weaver waves back to back and they can take a few forts and towers down, that's a lot of EXP to be gathered and close the gap between the two.
Definitely need to find something, anything right now. There's the grab, there's the toss. The cleanse has now been used onto Greymane there. So that will be another minute before that comes up. Let's see if Scroll can try and repeat that and they can get the pick that they need. They need to find something here. As Melody C very far forward, Zay is going to respond, and now that might look for an opportunity. SPT looking for blood.
Yeah, they're trying to go for Garrosh once again. The Divine Shield comes out. He has the Sound Barrier. Mosh Pit, but it gets interrupted. There might be an opportunity for the Soul Torturers to finally get a kill, but Misaka receives the Ancestral and is able to walk out. A lot of cooldown burn. A lot of heroics.
4 on the side of SPT, and they are long cooldowns outside of that gust. So we'll see how that plays out. Scroll taking a bit of poke damage from Melody C. Scroll trying to find anything and everything to do for his team after a lackluster game 1. We see Molten Core on the backside, however, putting God Dog in a bad spot. The Sulfur Smash going down. Scroll trying to stay alive. He gets the stun on the toss, but that will be a takedown onto Garrosh, and now they're looking for more.
Garrosh is down. Molten Core still active. Even with Sulfura Smash not hitting, they are getting in the damage. God Dog barely keeping himself alive here with a quick shield. But the situation is very dire for Soul Torturers. They needed the turn-in. They needed to go in here. Now they lost another hero. SPT isn't even waiting for 20. They don't even care. They just go straight for the boss. They know that there can't be any contention at all. They will also have Mighty Gust up. So even if the Soul Torturer said, hey, we have to YOLO this now. Let's go for the Hail Mary. There would always be Falstad in a position to gust them away. They can claim boss. And that push is going to be brutal. Not only can they actually time a Web Weaver wave now with the boss, but they will also time level 20 around it.
They'll have 20. They also have just a few gems shy, which means they're almost in for another turn-in. They can do basically whatever they want here. Again, the Kel'Thas defense, they're not pushing with the boss. It's going to buy them some time. The Kel'Thas defense will help rip through this as the double flame strike will go out. The boss will fall, but as you said, 20, dangerously close. Web Weavers have been turned in. Soul Torturers trying to make their last stand.
We're not talking about keeps here. We're talking about potentially the game ending. This keep has taken severe damage. The web weavers are descending soon. The 20 has now hit. Bolt of the Storm taken on the side of ETC. The keep nearly down. They can poke it around. Scroll is moving in. They have to try and make something happen now. Forza, by the way, is still at that bot lane. He's not with them. Here comes Soul Torturers. They're trying to look for the fight. Falstad will go and fly in as soon as he can, but Misaka might already be dead.
Misaka going down. He's staying alive by the skin of his teeth. He does get taken down eventually and toss in as we see the return there as Sa is going to go down. That's going to be Rhaegar. That is 2 members down on the side of SPT. Soul Torturers is holding for now, but as you said, there are web weavers pushing, and the defense is going to have to be here. This top keep will fall, but how much more?
They saved the game. They saved the game for now. The problem is they are going to lose 2, maybe even 3 keeps. That's the big issue here. They win a fight 18 versus 20 because Falstad is not with his team. This time he split a little bit too long, but as you can see right now, the web weavers alone, the objective destroys every single keep on the side of the Soul Torturers. Now they could have lost the game right here. But at this point, they are really with the back to the wall. They need to somehow find a fight, find turn and find a battle, and just push through. They are running out of time.
They need to rush the turn-in. The turn-in will not do much for you in the short term. What it does, it buys you time.
Yes.
It buys you real estate on the map to start to move forward. Catapults against web weavers have an amazing defense. You do have Kel'Thas, which can give you a minor bit more of a push, but right now, you need to get 20. They have enough gems for a second turn-in. Buy yourself time, buy yourself space, look for that fight that you just talked about. Right now, Soul Torturers doing everything they can to hold on.
They need to team fight the entire time now because a huge problem is going to arise once the boss is up again. Well, there's already an attempt to take down Malthael, but the rest of the team is there saving Malth. There's already Mosh Pit, but only hitting Scroll. That is not enough. Misaka is in trouble. If he falls here, and he does, that is a bad start for SPT. All of a sudden, Soul Torturers might be back in this for bit.
You said they need to fight, but what happens when a fight is brought to you? You return with a haymaker of your own. And right now, Soul Torturer's holding on, but Kata got to be careful as he pops the shield there on the Manak. Going to keep him alive. The big swing, but they're looking to kill him the minute he comes out of this. He is in a bad spot the minute he comes out. He's actually on the wrong side of things here, Kaldor.
Yeah, I'm really sorry, buddy, but you're not going to get out of this one alive. God Dog survives, and that's the kill. That's the double kill. At this point, Soul Torturers, they have some momentum. The web weavers, they bought them time. The waves are being outpushed. They haven't killed a fort yet. This is going to be the first one, and they're moving in. And what I said earlier still holds. They need to take every fight they can get because the big problem that is going to arise at some point is the boss at the top lane. Once the boss is available again, all that SPT has to do is posture around the boss area, and all the other lanes are going to pressure against the core of Soul Torturers, and eventually they will have to react to it, and this is going to be the moment where SPT strikes.
Yeah, they are nowhere near safe yet, but they are working their way back. Kodok does not have that shield anymore as it's going to be used. They're going to try and look for the fight. Misaka's going to be there. The gravity lap's going to grab onto him and go for the throat. Is going to get the takedown. And can he get more? He's got the reset. He uses it. Mur somehow drops away, but the cocktail confirms the kill. Going in right there. Greymane is cleaning house.
Redemption, of course, going to be a factor here, but it's still a 4 versus 5, and they still need to fight. We talked about it. Nice ult from Garrosh. They're trying to get the kill in. Malthael attempts to pop off against Xing Zhao. Goes in and tries to drop Greymane, but the first one to die is Falstad. Greymane still on the run. Cucumber alone already has 56 gems. Here comes the Molten Core again. Ragnaros with a swing, but a big miss.
A big miss so far. Molten Core is going to hold for now. The web weavers are falling in terms of health. And if you look at that death, Kaldor, the staggered death is there. If you look at the side, 15 seconds for Kel'Thas, 40 seconds for SPT to come back. And as you said, that boss is seconds away from spawning. And that could be a contention point. 5 seconds left. Will Soul Torturers make the desperation call as they're just a few gems short of another turn in as well? They have a few options to stay in this game.
And keep in mind, we talk a lot about the waves being pushed because they lost all their keeps. We have a global on the side of SPT. We've highlighted how Falstad was always splitting, so that is going to be emphasized even more. They need once again to go in. And I absolutely also love the 20 choice on the side of Ragnaros going straight into the heroic difficulty because all they have to do is survive. The longer this game lasts, the better for them.
They're looking for another turn in right now. Soul Tortures, this is their last effort to try and get control. They need to get the picks. They need to get the fight. They need to get a keep down, something here to try and potentially win the game, or at least take some pressure off the map, because outside of this, it's a long road before you get those gems. The only other thing that you'll have is the boss. And look here in the bottom lane, Caldor. We have a potential backdoor threat from Falsehead. He gets the Web Weaver out. You got Catapults pushing. It's getting later. That's going to be a threat. But right now, I think Soul Tortures is in an okay spot to push.
Yeah, the only thing that SPT is trying to do is force them back. They're not going to core yet. Keep in mind, it might look a bit dire at this point, but SPT, all they have to do is defend without losing the keep. If they accomplish that, then Soul Torch have no gems left, and the boss is up. So they just have to be patient. It's the only thing they need to do here. They don't even need to kill anybody. Just survive and don't lose your keeps.
We've got them on the core right now, because right now you could be stalled out from this Ragnaros. They're trying to back right now. The shields have fallen, and now Misaka going in, stalling out the hearse there. The core is falling, the power slide in. We've got a 3-man mosh pit. The cleanse is going to be there, and that is a core falling.
They only buy time, and the core is falling. Greyman is so good there as well, and that is game as SPT claims victory, and Soul Tortures go down 0-2 against the Chinese team.
Wow. It seemed like what shouldn't have happened did happen. The threat was there, and when Molten Core comes out, you get the bolt in. At that point, it's not about confirming kills, it's buying time.
I mean, at this point, as we said, Greyman and Falsehead were trying to force them back. And this is the thing. If you go back, if we actually see Soul Torch moving back, they lose the game in the long run. Because all of a sudden, you don't get value from the top lane, the defense is going to be successful, and then you have the situation that we explained. You have boss at the top, the Chinese team is going to posture, and you lose on every single lane. So they just said, guys, we know the core is being attacked here, but this is our only hope to make something happen. And at that point, Falsehead came and just said, boys, if we don't come back, then we just going to win this way. It was a checkmate situation.
It was a very tough spot, and unfortunately they fall, but they will have another chance. But we're going to hand it back over to Calera so we can get a recap on this crazy, crazy series.
That's right, gentlemen. Thank you. As the revenge for SPT to start things off here in Group D is complete. And with a 2-0, my I add Dread. That was a good start for them.
It was a very good start for them. The game, I feel like from a macro sense on the side of SPT was almost near perfect for the first 20 minutes. They played it so well. They were like, okay, give the first Web Weaver phase over to Soul Torturers, use the Ragnaros, double defense, stack the double Web Weaver phase immediately to push outward. It was just eventually hit a point where, you know, they bit a little bit more off than they could chew, and then a great punishment coming out from Soul Torturers.
SPT, got to be happy about that, man. I mean, this has been months in the making. Then coming back here and getting the revenge on Soul Torturers. Now, of course, they have to continue forward through the group, but not a bad way to start. And I think the great thing about that series is we get a feel for how strong SPT is with this roster. And it's good to see them getting wins.
It is really awesome to be able to see SPT kind of perform at this level, and I just want to bring up some of the highlights that I had from that last game, mainly about the laning decision-making that we saw early game. So I wanted to highlight this last team fight, or not so much the team fight, but the decision-making. Sun Qiao is never going to show. You expect the Falsehead to be off on its own here, you know, sitting out in front and getting the split push at this state in the game, but he is always going to make sure that he is hiding and never displaying himself. As it goes through, he just clears the Web Weaver, he's going to sit back, and he does a really good job of making sure that they never have the intent of knowing that the Greymane and the core threat is real. It just looks like a Falsehead is split pushing and clearing a Web Weaver phase that you would expect them to.
Yeah, look at him move up there in the bushes, going around the top right side. Never seen the entire time.
No idea. They are just sitting there going, where is going to be the Greymane? Ragnaros does a good job, drops the Molten Core very early as a defensive tactic, and then once they reveal with the Greymane, it's not yet, up until this point, ST had no idea.
Instantly,
so then Sulfurous Smash goes down, great delay, and Misaka just goes stop them from backing. This is the only way we can lose this game. Great bolt in, gets the knockback. It was just so clean from the members of SPT, and this is only the last decisions coming out from them. I feel like every minute of the first 20 minutes was near perfect.
Important to highlight for maybe some of the newer people to the Storm. I think that in that moment, SPT could have lost all of their members in that fight as long as they just bought time, Grubby.
Yeah, it didn't matter at all. I mean, you go in with the power slide, one of the few situations where pressing power slide and mosh, whatever happens is fine, just because it's like a lantern to the moths that of the team of ST is like, oh, mosh pit, let's cancel it, or oh, we got caught in it. No matter what, that was going to be a win-win situation. Very good point, Kalaris.
Good stuff there by SPT. 2-0 victory. Let's head over to the stage to see what they have to say about that win.
Thank you so much, Kailaris. And that's right, I'm here with Misaka from the winning team, SPT. Congratulations on your first victory here in Group D. Now, I have to ask you, it seems like every time we see Chinese teams in international events, they're playing with a bit of a handicap, a player who hasn't been on their normal roster. That kind of situation, we know ZZH had visa issues this time around, and you have Sa on your team as well. How are you adjusting to that change in your roster, and how is it going so far?
首先，非常恭喜拿下第一组的第一场胜利嘛。然后我们也知道，中国队伍，很多时候打国际比赛都会缺兵少将。然后这次 SP 也是 ZZH 因为签证问题没法到这里来比赛，所以说你觉得，这个对我们的战队影响有多大呢？
首先我们可能之前练的东西都就是需要再花一遍，就再练一遍，需要花更多的时间。然后，至于其他的，感觉没什么影响。
I think the most part is that we have to rebuild the synergy, especially the things we practiced before. Then we have to do it again with our substitution players.
Gotcha. Now, Misaka, I asked you the closing question in our Media Day interview. I said, is there anything you want the world to know about SPT? And you said something very interesting. You said you have to earn the right to speak, meaning you need to claim a win or a victory to be able to speak. And I thought that was very interesting. You've got a win under your belt. What would you like the world to know about SPT?
在其实媒体日采访的时候，他其实有问到问题嘛，你觉得有什么事情是你想跟世界说关于 SP 战队的？然后你说那个时候说我们还是需要我们用表现说话嘛。然后你说我们刚才是拿下第一场胜利，所以说你觉得现在有什么想说的吗？
我觉得首先赢了小赛区的队，对于我们，因为我们是第一，这是应该的，就不应该输给小赛区。然后其次是我觉得。 很多的话应该等我们出现了再去说，而不是现在就骄傲起来。
I think we're the #1 seed from the China region, and we should be able to take on a minor region team. But I think in terms of what we want to talk about team, we think that that have to wait until we came into the Blizzcon.
All right, one final question for you. You're not quite out of the woods yet for Blizzcon. One more match remains, and that one is going to be up against Team Expert versus Ballistics. You will play the winner of that match. Do you have a favorite team that you hope to see in the winner's match?
因为我们现在只是拿下一场胜利嘛，还需要一场才晋级到嘉年华的阶段。所以说，你觉得下一场是 Ballistic 和那个 Team Expert 比赛，你是更希望能碰到哪个对手呢？
其实我们对欧洲队伍就是了解的，看他们比赛比较多，然后最近也一直在研究欧洲的队伍。要是就是上来的是 Ballistics， 我觉得也没有什么太大的关系。 因为我们已经做好了准备，跟这两个队伍去打比赛，然后还有就是，想要获得好成绩，就不应该畏惧任何一个对手。
I think historically we've done a lot of study on European teams, watch the tapes, and we understand them a lot. But even if we facing the Ballistics, we're prepared. So I think if you wanted to advance in this group, you definitely have to prepare for facing whatever teams that you come to compete with.
Fantastic. I love the confidence. Good luck, Misaka, as you prepare for your next match here in Group D. Thank you so much. All right, SPT takes the first victory here in Group D. We've got so much more to come. Up next is going to be Team Expert from EU. They're the 3rd seed up against Ballistics, the 2nd seed from Korea. They are also our reigning champions from Blizzcon last year. Stick with us, just a short break.